Good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank you for joining us for William Patterson University Masters of Music Jazz Information Session. We are going to be covering the performance tracks, the composition and arranging tracks today with Professor Pete McGuinness. He's here to provide you all the information you would need to become a student at William Patterson. We welcome any questions towards the end. If you have anything that you'd like to ask kind of mid presentation, we'd welcome you to please put them in the chat box. And if you could please keep yourselves on mute throughout the presentation so that we are able to get through it, but we promise we will get to all your questions as soon as possible. Professor McGuinness, I wanted to welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us and doing this today. And I am going to leave the floor to you.
Thank you, Ms. Aiello. This is Pete McGuinness. I'm one of the full-time professors in the Jazz Studies area at William Patterson University. I oversee the Masters of Music in Jazz Arranging. But I'm here to talk about both of the tracks in the Master of Music and Jazz Studies degree, both the performance track and the composing arranging track. It's called arranging, but it's really also composing arranging. Let me see where I'll begin. We have two tracks like you see below. It's one degree, Master of Music and Jazz Studies, but it has two disciplines, two tracks we call it, the performance track and the composition arranging track. Many of the classes that are offered in these tracks overlap. They're often the very same class, like things like advanced ear training and entrepreneurship. All of the students in the Master of Music and Jazz Studies at our school take both of these classes, but then of course they diverge into their disciplines, most notably the private studies. A performance track person would take lessons with a performance person. Let's say you're a saxophonist or a vocalist. Your primary private instructor would be that instrument or that voice. For the arranging track, we have two arranging professors, actually. You would spend time with both of them, both Cecil Bridgewater and Ed Neumeister, a new hire to the school. You would spend 1 year with each one of these people and some time with me as well as the head of the arranging program. So they're slightly different in disciplines, but they do have a lot of crossover, primarily also in the playing in the small groups. You are expected in either of these tracks, performance or composing arranging, to be a player of a certain level. Even the arranger composers need to be playing at a certain level to what we say hang with the other students. So be able to play in the combos and be a performer at a certain level. That's very, very important to us. I'm going to move on to the next slide here. So William Patterson University Jazz Orchestra. So this is with Clark Terry, who of course, was a member of our faculty for many, many years. He was in much of the way the heart and soul of the jazz studies area with other people. Of course, we have not had him for many years, but this is the kind of people we have at William Patterson University. These are the kind of legendary artists who teach at our school. Everyone on every chair, whether it be trumpet, trombone, saxophone, bass, guitar, drums, vocal, is a important New York City area and nationally, internationally known jazz artist. So it's important you know that when you come to study at our program, whether it's as a performer or an arranger, you are basically in the hands of some of the top jazz musicians in the world, not just New York and certainly not just New Jersey, but seeing this great picture of Clark Terry, who was on our faculty for a long, long time, these are the kind of people that teach at our school. We're 18 miles due west of New York City, just off the George Washington Bridge, meaning we're close to New York City and all the things New York has to offer. You know, the musicians that we have come in as guest artists, do workshops, who teach on our faculty, and also the proximity to New York for the students, to go to clubs, to go to jam sessions, to do many, many things. Students come from all over the country. Right now, I think the record has been 22 states in our country we have students come from, including international students. In this time of COVID, we've had students online in some of our classes. Some of our classes are running live. We have made safety protocols, but some of our classes need to be online. We have had students simultaneously in a classroom at the same time from Iceland, Korea, and New Jersey, all at the same time, which is remarkable. Another one of our things we like to say is important about our program, we're much less expensive than comparable programs in the New York City area, conservatory level programs. We're about a third of those, the prices. And we offer in-state tuition for everyone now. This is a brand new thing as of this year. So New Jersey residents, United States residents, and even international students can enjoy the same rate of price per credit, no matter where they come from. That's huge. And lastly, you can see Clark Terry there and the students. We're really dedicated to preparing professional level playing in the jazz studies area. This is really an important thing. You're surrounded by all top pros on every discipline, on every chair that is a teacher, and the students themselves are all dedicated to being high level, professional level players. This is quite unique, I think, for our program. So next slide. Okay, you can see from this lovely picture, I said we're very close to New York City. We have 400-acre nature preserve on our campus. It's absolutely beautiful. We have beautiful trees and lawns, and it's almost a rural setting, but we're only 18 miles away from New York City. So you're getting the best of both worlds, that beautiful campus experience you might get elsewhere in the country, while being so very close to New York City. That's a really important thing. It's very accessible to New York. There is a bus that goes direct from our campus straight to Midtown Manhattan. So for students that want to go to the clubs, the students that want to take an extra lesson with some famous New York musician or whatever they want to do, they're really close to New York City. A lot of students carpool as well. So there's students that have cars. So there's accessibility to New York. I want to say a couple of things about scholarship for undergraduate students, although this is primarily a master's presentation today. We have scholarships and for musical and academic merit available for undergraduate students. The graduate students can apply for and be approved for what we call graduate assistantships. This is really important. There's only a limited number of them, and they're competitive to get, I will say that. But if you get one of them, and we roughly have about 5 or 6 every year that we split between the composer arrangers and the performers. A graduate assistantship is a job you would do on campus. You would be working a fairly doable clerical job, whether it's in the Department of Music itself, working in music missions, or working in the jazz office, or you might work elsewhere on campus, but no one has ever complained about not being able to figure out or handle the clerical work involved in one of these graduate assistantships. They're all very doable. There is a certain amount of time. A full graduate assistantship is 20 hours a week, which means you get full tuition paid for plus a stipend. There are also half scholarships available, which is 10 hours of work a week plus a smaller stipend. And this is usually given out to the students we feel deserve it, the graduate students coming in, who is the best fit for any given job, and certainly students we want to get, high-level musical students that we want to have on our campus. These are limited, like I said, but they are available and they're very attractive. If you can apply for this and be awarded a graduate assistantship, it basically covers either 100% or 50% of your tuition, plus you get a small stipend for the work you do. Next slide. Oops. Here's a wonderful picture of the great saxophonist Benny Golson working with our students. Benny Golson was one of the guest artists we had in one of the big band concerts. We have guest artists come twice a year with the big band, once in the fall, once in the spring. And while they're here, during the rehearsals for the big band, it's almost like a workshop. So it's like you get the great Benny Golson or whoever we get. We've had so many, I'll mention a few in a minute. While they're here, they work directly with the students, not just rehearsing the music with the big band for the concert, but there's a lot of interaction. And we're very, very proud of that. Some of the people we've had over the years are, like you see Benny Golson, in fact, a few times, Joe Lovano, Maria Schneider, Randy Brecker, and the list goes on and on and on. And that's largely due to our proximity to New York City. It's very easy for us to pick the creme de la creme of the world of jazz, being so close to New York. Another source of interaction between jazz greats and our students is the concert series we have called Jazz Room. We do this 12 times a year, 6 times each semester, and 4 to 5 times in the summer as well. And each one of these Jazz Room concerts is a concert of a legendary jazz artist. But before the professional jazz group performs, we have an opening set of a student group. And I love to see this. The student group acts as a warm-up group, and then there's an intermission, and countless times backstage, the guest artists and their entire band have been listening backstage to the students. There's all kinds of interaction. There's like wisdom flying around the room. It's just wonderful. I have to videotape these. They're incredible. And then the pro group will go on. And even after that, there's interaction. So there's the Jazz Room Concert Series is a great source of direct interaction between our students and world-class professional artists. A Master of Music degree, particularly in jazz studies, whether it's performing or arranging, is enormously helpful for future work as an educator at the college level. Many colleges require a master's degree, even to be an adjunct, regardless of your resume. I know that from personal experience. So that's an important factor as well to think about. Some of the alumni that have come through our program, it's countless. We're very, very proud of the students that have come through our program. People like Taishan Sori, the drummer and percussionist composer rather, who recently won a MacArthur Genius Grant. Eric Alexander, who spent many years with another former faculty member, the late Harold Mayburn. Carl Allen, Mark Juliana, finalists in the Monk competition, Fulbright scholars. We've had 3 arrangers from the arranging program win first prize in the BMI Jazz Composers Charlie Parker Prize in New York City. One of our students a couple of years ago won first prize in the Downbeat Music Student Recording Awards on the graduate level. And one of our other graduate arrangers won semi-finalist in the Herb Alpert Young Jazz Composers Awards. And these are big, big national accolades. 4 of our graduates from the arranging program, you can see one of them right there, Caleb Rumling, have formed a big band of their own called Big Beat. And this band has made a recording that is coming out very, very soon. And they're a working band in the New York, New Jersey area. So we're really proud of the alumni and lots of stuff about the interaction between students and the jazz greats. Next slide. Okay, this is a wonderful picture. This is Thad Jones talking to a group of students. This is a room I work in all the time, and I'm always thinking Thad is looking over our shoulders. On the one hand, egging us on, and on the other hand, saying, make sure you get it right. Because he was so wonderful and such an important jazz musician, one of the founders of our jazz program back in 1973. Big, big deal. The spirit of Thad Jones lives on in our school in many, many ways. Our school has about 70 students in the jazz studies area and roughly 15 students in the master's program at any one time. So there's a lot of personal attention, smaller classes. Students are not in an ocean of these huge classes or ensembles with, some schools have 10 big bands. They have classes full of 50 students. We don't have that at all. You are right up front center with some legendary jazz musicians. Even now in 2020, when I'm doing this, of course, this photograph was taken from the 1970s. But this school has always had a lineage of super heavyweight musicians in the classroom, and it always will. We're dedicated to that. That's super important to what we do here. That's really important. We don't have a lot of students who are TAs or people just with doctorates, although that's great. We have people that have been in the field for many years who are dedicated players and dedicated teachers. If they don't show up, and they rarely ever miss, they'll send in yet another New York heavyweight jazz musician. So you're always around the very, very creme de la creme in the world of professional jazz at our school. The next thing, this is Master's of Music Performance Curriculum. Well, again, I said the performance degree, the performance track rather, differs a bit from the arranging track, and I'll talk about them separately. First and foremost, private instruction and voice lessons if you're a vocal major weekly with one of these fine players, and I'll mention all of them in a minute. It's a who's who of top New York people, I'll tell you right now. Small ensembles, this is the core of our program. We have 24 small jazz ensembles. And just about every student participates in at least 2, if not 3, small jazz combos every week, every semester. So you might be one week with Bill Charlap in one of his groups, and then a day later you might be with Jeremy Pelt, the great jazz trumpet player, coaching a combo. And the next day you might be with Marcus McLaurin, famous from the Count Basie Orchestra and his years with Clark Terry. So you're always around top people in the combos and your private lessons. This is a huge part of what we do. Courses in transcription analysis, jazz history, advanced jazz history for graduate students, advanced ear training. This is super important. All the students, the arrangers and the performers are in this class, and it sharpens your ears to a profoundly high level. This is something you don't get as an undergraduate student. And that kind of class bleeds over into everything else you do as a graduate student. Entrepreneurship, that's how do you make a living? How do you promote yourself? If you're going to make a record, how do you get it out there into the world? This is stuff that directly impacts someone who's serious about a music career. Jazz pedagogy, very important. A serious class about if you ever get a college teaching gig, or even at the high school level, how do you organize it? What do you teach? So many people really don't know, I hate to say it. And so we want our graduate students to walk out the door, if education is part of their future, have some ideas about how to pursue that properly. Thesis assignments versus a tribute recital, they're different. A thesis is more for someone who's more academic oriented, perhaps looking for more of a teaching job in life, whereas a tribute recital is music that is composed and arranged with a certain idea in mind, a composer, a compositional concept, and it's approved by our faculty. And that's more for a performance-minded person. Moving along. All right, here's a picture of the great Christian McBride, one of the most important jazz musicians around. Christian actually came in the year we were looking for a replacement for Mulgrew Miller. We had a number of people because we were doing a search, and he was here for about 6 weeks. He still comes back to campus occasionally. The reason I'm bringing this picture up too is because I said before, we have super heavyweight people on our faculty. Steve Laspina, Marcus McLaurin are our 2. We have not just 1, but 2 famous bass teachers. If they have to miss, for whatever reason, they're on the road for a week, the world's going to change and that will come back. These are the kind of people that come in to fill in for them. I mean, I'm always knocked out when I walk down the hall and somebody is subbed out for just 1 week, and you'll see someone like Christian McBride or someone of that caliber. I'm like, what are you doing here? He says, oh, I'm filling in for Rich Perry for 1 week. I was like, whoa, and it'll be John Gordon or somebody super heavyweight or Ralph LaLama. I mean, that's the kind of people we have coming to our school, even as the substitutes. So man, you are always surrounded by heavyweight people. But like I said, our faculty don't miss. They're totally dedicated to teaching, and that's why they're here. We wouldn't have people otherwise teach at our school if they weren't dedicated. You can see the complete list at our website of all these fantastic musicians. Some of the names will jump right out at you. If not, read their resume, you'll be utterly knocked out. So I'm going to move on to the next category here. Yep. Okay, the arranging track. Now this is a little different. Like I said, there's crossover. Private arranging lessons. So the people that would come in, although we want you to be a high-level player, you are going to focus your private studies on composing, arranging naturally. You will write for the big band, which is always available to you. In fact, you're obligated to write for the big band for your recital. You have to have a number of large jazz ensemble charts for your recital your second year. You're going to write for the guest artist the second year, which is, to me, the highlight in many ways. If a Randy Brecker comes in, or any other famous musician, we had Joe Lovano, and the second year graduate arrangers will actually write an arrangement of one of their compositions for the concert. And many times, I'm proud to say, the guest artist is so happy with the arrangement, they use it for their own private purposes. Maybe they play it on gigs, maybe they play with other colleges, which makes us look good, of course, because the quality of the writing our arrangers do reflects very highly on us. Of course, there's more combo playing. So if you're a saxophonist who is an arranger or pianist, you will play in 2 or 3 combos if your schedule can fit it, if your credit load can fit it. A lot of times we're with a bass player, for example, we need you to play in 2 combos because there are not enough bass players perhaps with 24 combos. So there's plenty of playing as an improviser, as a member of a combo, even though you're in the arranging program. One of the combos you must play in is a combo designed only for the composer arrangers and only plays their music. So you have your own special combo that focuses on you and your writing. And again, some of these other courses bleed over. Courses in transcription analysis, arranging topics very specific to orchestration techniques, famous arrangers, advanced ear training like the performers do, jazz history topics, composing for the media. This is a great class for arrangers where you learn the ins and outs of working with MIDI, film scoring, writing for video games, music, and other things perhaps in the world of advertising. It's a great skill for a composer arranger to have, important skill. And jazz pedagogy. So there's a lot of crossover in both of the areas of arranging and performing. So let me move on to the next slide. Okay, here's a nice picture of the band playing at Dizzy's Club CocaCola. This is a relationship we've established at Jazz at Lincoln Center. Of course, when the club's open again. So we have an annual standing invitation to always perform at Dizzy's Club CocaCola, very often with a guest artist that we would normally have in the spring, or sometimes our faculty will perform with the students. Yes, so we perform on campus, off campus, year round. The combos will perform at Dizzy's as well. The big band will, as you see here. So there's an awful lot of performing going on campus during regular concerts, during the Jazz Room series, special performances like you see here at Dizzy's Club CocaCola, and lots and lots of performance opportunity. Here's a wonderful picture. This is during our Jazz Room concert on campus in our main concert hall. There's Joe Lovano, and there's one of our students, Dasul Kim, conducting the band on his arrangement of a song by Joe Lovano. This is what, in one picture, this kind of sums the whole thing up. Students performing with Joe Lovano on stage with the students, the graduate arranger writing music for the guest artist, and we do this every spring. It's always a different artist, of course. And there's a lot of interaction, of course, between the arranger and the performer in rehearsals and sometimes even beforehand. A student might send a rough draft score of what they're working on to a Joe Lovano or whoever, Randy Brecker, and the student might ask, without being too rude and taking up too much of their time, how do you feel about this? I'm writing this arrangement of your song. How much chances can I take? And I work closely with the students to make sure that whatever they write's in the ballpark, and it's going to make the artist happy. Because you want the artist happy because they're going to play your music more and more. This is one of the things I'm most proud about in the arranging track. Here's a wonderful picture of Bill Charlap in action at the keyboard talking to students. Bill Charlap is our new director of jazz studies, actually not so new anymore, been here a few years. He is the principal coach of jazz combos in our school. Just about all students, undergrad and grad, will get to spend at least one semester, if not 2, or more even, with Bill Charlap, one of the master pianists in the country, one of the master band leaders with his trio, the Bill Charlap Trio, which has been going for 20 years. And as we've all gotten to know him over these past 6-7 years, an incredible educator. His wealth of knowledge is through the roof. I mean, there's just massive amounts of knowledge he knows. And he's a very accessible person, and he cares deeply about the students. And he's such a masterful player. So he is really in many ways, the centerpiece of our jazz studies program. And students do get to interact with him frequently while they're here. In many ways, not just if they're in their combo, but through the dialogue days where the students perform, faculty and students talk about performances on stage, and it's a very friendly environment, really designed to make students feel the love of this music. On that note, here's a wonderful picture of the late, I'm sorry to say, late Harold Mayburn, who was on our faculty for 38 years. I'm showing you this picture now because I want you to know these, reminding you, like with the Thad Jones photograph, William Patterson is about these kind of people. We always were before, and we always will be in the future. So if you come to school here, you're going to be surrounded by people like this. Harold would hold court, and man, cats would get late sometimes to class because Harold would be telling stories. I mean, amazing stories that were full of educational stuff. You know, what was it like to hang around Charlie Parker in the club, or Lee Morgan? What did Lee Morgan do on the break? What did he practice? This is the kind of stuff a man like Harold Mayburn, stories he would tell, invaluable stories that you can't get anywhere else but William Patterson. And we have plenty of people on our faculty that are of that caliber still, and we'll always have those kinds of people. So when you come to our school, you're hanging around the heavyweights. I think that's what I'm trying to get at here with this wonderful picture of Harold. The Jazz Room Concert Series. Here's some of our students performing on stage, always as the opening act for a professional act. Again, we have 6 of these per semester. Each one of them has an opening set by the students. And 5 of them happen also in the summer, during the Summer Jazz Room Series. I talked about the interaction between the students and the pros backstage in these concerts. They're on the same stage the pros are going to be on, you know, an hour later, after the intermission. And they're doing virtually the same thing the pros will be doing, except as a student group. So they're sharing the stage, sharing the bill, if you will, with the guest artists. And then there's that wonderful backstage encounters that you really can't put a price tag on. It's just unbelievable, and I love seeing all of that. The Jazz Room for this season, fall 2020, although we have to do it online and with video streaming performances because of the COVID, which of course all our fingers are crossed will end soon. But we've managed to put together a great lineup: Billy Hart's quartet, Ed Neumeister on trombone, Steve Nelson, the great vibraphone player, Gary Simolian, the great baritone player with an octet. We've kept that safe. We're celebrating the 100th day, or the 100th year rather, of Clark Terry's birth. So we're having Jeremy Pell, our jazz trumpet instructor, spearhead a fantastic group to celebrate Clark Terry's 100th birthday. And we're ending the season with the newly renowned jazz singer Veronica Swift. And so it's always a lineup of super heavyweights. Moving right along. The core of the program. Now, this is important, not just because we have 24 small groups, but the flexibility of the small groups. We have things called concept groups, meaning the students themselves, if they can really get it together, and many of them can decide amongst themselves, we would like to focus on the music of one composer or one band. And they join forces and they contact Dr. Dempsey and Professor Charlap and say, we'd like to form this concept group. And we would like, not only that, we would like this specific professor to coach it. Because the students know the professors well enough to know this person knows something about that music. We think this is a great idea. We don't do this all the time because we feel we want to, share our wisdom about certain things about how combo should go. But there are times when these concept groups, by qualified student groups, student musicians, they form and it works out incredibly well. It's a very intense study of one composer. It might be somebody who actually played with Horace Silver or some particular artist, and they know something about it. So the students want to be around that adjunct, that private instructor, coach, the ensemble coach, and learn in a very deep way about that subject matter. And that's very specific to our program. Very, very proud of that. Here's a lovely picture of the Roy Haynes Group. This is just a picture of a pro band on stage. You just saw the students on stage. On the very same stage, after an intermission, the pro band comes on. It's like stepping into their shoes in a way, if you will. And I think it's very, very cool when the students get to do a jazz room concert, which is for a large audience. It's on our main stage. So the students open up the act. There's an intermission with all that great interaction I told you about backstage. And it happens every time, without fail. And then the pro group comes on and does their set. And it's that pairing of the students to the pros that I think is one of the very special things about Jazz Room that I can't even think of a program in this country that can compare to what we do. And naturally, we're funded generously by the New Jersey State Council on the Arts for this. They see the value not just for art in the community, but as an educational resource, directly connecting students to great jazz artists. Here's a wonderful shot. This is the big band again at Dizzy's Club CocaCola with two of our faculty members, Rich Perry and Vince Herring. And they're playing with the band, and I think they're playing a student chart. One of the graduate students wrote a chart for them both to play on. So there's a direct connection between the faculty, not just the guest artists, performing alongside the students, and at great venues like Dizzy's Club CocaCola. That's huge. That's another thing that New York, the sounds of New York. Yes, you can hear. That's Brooklyn. I'm speaking to you from Brooklyn. We live down the street from a firehouse. That's New York living. So that's a lovely photograph. Got to move on to another subject, the Living Jazz Archives. And the better person to talk about this is Dr. David Dempsey, my colleague, but I'm going to say a few things about it. This archive was initially created for Clark Terry. Clark Terry, when he was going to retire, he wanted a place to store his various things, his trumpets, his music, his recordings, even his date book. There's so many pieces of Clark Terry's life here at the Living Jazz Archive. And it's called Living, as David Dempsey always says, because, when I stop playing and blah, 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 I don't, archives are for dead people. That's what Clark said. I want this to be living. I want people playing my horns. I want people playing my music on the bandstand, even if it has to be photocopies of things that he actually wrote by hand. And that was the impetus for the Living Jazz Archives. And that was the beginning. Clark Terry really gave birth to this thing. If you look at Clark Terry's date book, which is in the archive, you flip to any page, I love it, it's 1960. Oh my God. So it's February 1960, and you look at Monday, and he's doing a record day with Ella Fitzgerald, and Tuesdays with Quincy Jones, and Wednesday he goes off on the road with Count Basie for 3 days. Unbelievable. I have a couple of those things in my date book, but nothing like that. Wonderful, wonderful resource to learn about Clark's life. Also Thad Jones. We have the Thad Jones archive, which means we have pencil, handwritten scores of Thad Jones music going back to the 50s, some of the things he wrote for Count Basie. It's an incredible resource to learn about Thad Jones's music. James Williams, we have his archive. He was a pianist with Art Blakey, of course, and one of our director of jazz studies. Michael Brecker, the great saxophonist. We have unbelievable stuff, personal stuff. Private sketchbooks he wrote out of practice things, cassette tapes where he was practicing at home. We also have materials from Mulgrew Miller, of course, one of our former directors who left us, again, so untimely and so young. Jim McNeely, we're preparing his archive, the music of Jim McNeely, his scores. And we have a number of scores from Don Sebesky, the great arranger. Lots of them, things he did with Barbra Streisand and a bunch of other people, his hand scores. So it's a great resource for composer arrangers and for the players. And the grad students do take advantage of this. We've had people in the archive studying Michael Brecker's stuff who are performers, and then we've had arrangers studying stuff from Thad Jones or Don Sebesky, sometimes even on the same day. So that's remarkable. Also, there's things like on the next picture. So we've digitized much of this information as well to make sure it's safe for the ages. We have a lot of LPs that we got from these people and their own personal collections, but paper copies of things, recordings of cassette tapes. Dr. Dempsey is diligent about making sure that all of those things are digitized properly and saved for student study. Gonna move on to the next thing. Here we go. Okay, here's some very special things under glass. So it's like the Smithsonian. Right there is a handwritten copy of a Count Basie chart that Thad Jones arranged. There are some original handwritten compositions by Clark Terry and James Williams. And this just gives you an example of the gravity gravitas of our archive. It's very important. Let's get down to some brass tacks. Tuition, this is big news. In-state tuition for everyone, meaning if you're a New Jersey state resident, a resident of the United States, or an international student, you pay the same as an in-state student. This is huge news, a great cost saver to people across the board, no matter where you come from. So whether you get some kind of outside scholarship, whether you get a graduate assistantship, even if you don't get a graduate assistantship, the total you pay per credit is $746 per credit per semester, which is a lot less than some of the other conservatory level programs in the New York City area. It's important to know that. That's one of our real selling points. If you're an undergrad student, and I know this presentation is geared for graduate students, there's a thing called 4+1, which is basically, if you're an undergrad, you can begin your graduate studies your junior year by taking some master's programs, but you must apply your sophomore year. And we only pick the best and the brightest for this. This is very hard to be taking master's level stuff your junior and senior year while you're getting your bachelor's. You can contact graduate studies more on that, and music admissions more on that, because it's almost on the books. 99.9% there for the fall. So we want to just have a disclaimer about that. That's important. I mentioned this, the savings, if you do the in-state tuition now, which is the policy, it's a savings of $415 per credit for a graduate student. This is huge, great savings. Moving on, we're almost done. Let's see what we got here. Okay, more brass tacks. How to apply to the program. There's a university application, which needs recommendations from people, letters of recommendation. I believe we need 2 per person. Music department application. This is a separate application, just the application itself. And the third part is, of course, the audition for the performers and the arrangers. For the performers, you're going to present 3 to 4 audio recordings. And of course, you want to show off your best playing. And it should be something that is in the jazz realm that we can recognize. Not necessarily all original compositions. You're applying as a performance major. The arrangers, however, 3 to 4 compositions, ideally mostly large ensemble, and there should be a mixture of compositions and arrangements. We need at least, I oversee the arranging program, so I like to see normally 2 large ensemble, aka big band arrangements, both compositions and arrangements. There is a link down there at the bottom of this, but I was told there is a faster way of getting there. The faster way is, and I'm looking for it, www.wpunj.edu/jazz. And once you get there, you'll find directions to all of these things to apply to the program. That will save you an enormous amount of time, because this is a lot of text down here. Again, our music admissions office can really answer many, many questions about the application process. There is a platform called Slide Room. Slide Room is simply a platform where you upload PDFs and MP3s. Videos are also nice, as long as the audio is clear. So either MP3 of audio or videos of audio. But for the arrangers, PDFs of the scores that correspond to the audio is mandatory. So you have to have both of those things. Let's see where I am now. Give me a second. Okay, so this is a lot of text coming your way. A lot of questions can be answered if you just simply contact us or look at the screen. Letters of recommendation, a portfolio, many of the things I just mentioned, your GPA, 2.75 when you're auditioning for the program. The actual audio materials and the musical materials, very specific things here. You might want to look at that or contact Music Admissions once again. Music Admissions knows a lot about this stuff, as does Graduate Studies. They can help you as well. So I'm going to leave that because it's too lengthy to get into now. This is let me click on this. This is a nice video. It's a little old, but much of what you would see in this video has not changed in the years. So if you see this and you log on to this, this is a YouTube video rather, about the history of the Jazz Studies program, you'll learn a lot as well beyond what I've said today. So take a look at that address. And again, if you go www.youtube, if you search on YouTube, William Patterson Jazz, this video will be one of the choices. You'll find it. 40 Years Pioneering Jazz Education is the name of the video. You can't miss it. So lastly, these are the contacts. The website, music admissions at wpunj.edu. That'll be a real source of information. Music admissions at wpunj.edu. Dr. David Dempsey, you can see his address there. Pete McGuinness is my name. You can see our address here. See our phone numbers here. Lastly, always feel free to come for a person visit. You know, much of what we're doing, even in the era of COVID, is happening live with safety protocols. Combos are happening. A few of the classes are happening. Contact myself or Dr. Dempsey about setting up an appointment to come visit the program. If it's safe, if you're in the area and all that's protocol stuff, it's very important. But you can see us in action, maybe even jump onto one of our Zoom classes. That might be something you could do this year. And with that, I believe I am done. That is my presentation about the Master of Music and Jazz Studies, performance and composing arranging.
Professor McGuinness, I want to thank you so much for the information today. I think it was super, super helpful. I want to thank you all for attending. Please be advised, if you do have any questions, you are more than welcome to reach out to the Grad Admissions Office, or to go ahead and reach out to Professor McGuinness or Music Admissions directly. Moving forward, do take note that there is a soft deadline for applications. All of that information is found on our website. The application to actually apply is also found wpunj.edu/graduate, and you would select the Apply Now button, and that will bring you through the actual university application. So without keeping you any longer, again, thank you so much for attending today, and please let us know if we can help you in any other way. Have a great day.